Good evening. Every year, we look to refine the budget process and our presentations to the school board and community. It is important for our school community to have a clear understanding of what our goals and how the budget is going to support the district in attaining those goals. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who contributed to the development of this year's superintendent budget presentation. It takes a lot of work and collaboration in developing a budget that supports the needs of the students and staff with consideration to the taxpayers. I also want to thank the Board of Education for their support on the work we do. You've heard throughout the presentations, every administrator that has presented has talked about budget priorities. So today I'm going to sum up what the budget priorities are for the entire district. Number one is safety and security. We have taken a multi-pronged approach to safety and security. We have a safety audit, a district-wide safety audit. We have radios to ensure that we can communicate in case of an emergency. We've constructed some security vestibules. There are procedures in place such as credential exchange for visitors in the building. We have drills, we have preparation, we have school resource officers and safety officers in every building. And so that is our commitment to safety and security because that's always been and continues to be our number one priority. This past December, when the voters did not approve our capital project in December, we then administered a survey. The feedback was clear. The cost of the proposition was too high, and they recommended that we do smaller projects and include them in our general budget. So today, you're going to see something new to our budget, something called transfer to capital. This is a mechanism that allows us to fund a capital project and bus purchases rather than having a separate proposition. This includes the purchase of 5 buses and the construction of a security vestibule at Central Valley for the cost of $1,150,000. The second is to remain responsive to the changing needs of our students. Post-pandemic, the needs of our students have changed. This year, we administered a survey to our students to gather feedback. Based on that feedback, we developed new course offerings or added additional sections when appropriate. This year, we're offering an additional section of scientific research, an additional section of music production, and in addition, we're offering a new course on cybersecurity. It is important that our course offerings prepare our students for jobs not only for today, but for future years. Maintaining our instructional staff. Throughout the year, we have ongoing evaluation of our students' needs and interests. We intentionally place our staff where they offer the most support for our students. And finally, staff and professional development. We know that one of the most important resources we can provide our teachers is good professional development. The goal of professional development for educators is to go beyond maintenance and create sustainable professional longevity so that we ultimately will improve student outcomes. Let's go to slide 3. You've seen this slide before. It's the 2% tax cap, and it's the formula that we use. As you can see, we start with the prior year's tax levy, which is $129,074,842. We then multiply it by the tax-based growth factor, and then that gives us $130,391,405. Then we add the prior year pilots, which is $407,787. And then we subtract our prior year exemptions, or our capital levy, which was $881,070. And then we adjust, and we get to $129,998,122. And then we allow for that allowable growth factor, and in this case it was 1.2. And then we subtract, I said it was a very long formula, we subtract our coming year pilots, and this year it's 567,615, and that gives us a tax levy limit of $132,470. So, and then we add this coming year exceptions, and it's $673,788 to give us a maximum allowable levy of $132,704 I apologize, $132,704,258. So that's a change from the prior year of $3,629,416 to give us an allowable tax levy increase of 2.81. What we are recommending this year is a proposed levy to remain the same as last year. So our proposed tax levy for this year is $129,074,842 for a proposed tax levy increase of 0. Last year, our tax levy limit was 2.77, and we recommended a 1.95. So let's go to the next slide. So what you see here is our state aid. It's really important to note that this year's state aid was an increase of 21.8%. And the only reason that we are able to go with or recommend a 0% tax levy increase is because of the increase in foundation aid. And we felt that it was significant enough to be able to give back to our taxpayers by recommending a 0% tax levy increase. Let's go to the next slide. And so here are two pie charts just to give comparisons. One of the things that you'll note of significance is that the state aid that we received from last year to this year is significant. Last year, the state aid was made up of 33%, and this coming year, it's 38%. The school tax levy, what we receive on the property taxes from our community, last year made up 64%. This year, it makes up 61%. So that's a significant change for us and an important change for us. And Patrick has done a really good job of talking about the foundation aid that we should have received over the last 10 years. I think many of you who've been around have heard him talk about if we got the foundation aid that we are entitled to, we would be in a much better place. Well, this is the third year of a 3-year phase-in of the foundation aid, and so this is significant for us. And you can see that the impact is really important to us and our taxpayers. Let's go to our next. So here is my recommendation. There is only one proposition this year. It's proposition number 1, and it's for the total general fund budget. We are proposing a total general fund budget of $213,115,925. Again, going back to last year's tax levy of $129,074,842. Total non-property tax revenues and other sources is $83,791,083. This year, we are not taking from our appropriated reserves, and our appropriated fund balance of $250,000, giving us a proposed budget of $213,115,925. So as a former social studies teacher, I love to look at history. So what you're looking at is 7 years of budget-to-budget comparison. Significantly is the last 2 years. Last year, our increase was 6.76%. And yes, that was significant, but that is also in correlation to inflation. The costs of things are very expensive, transportation is expensive, and so you saw that last year, you see that again this year. But I do want to make sure that everyone realizes that even with a 5.75% increase, we have had a modest budget. We are presenting a modest budget. So please go to the next slide. And then we have 19 years of tax levy comparison. We were as high at one point in 2004, 2005 of almost 7%. And then this year, our recommendation is the lowest in 19 years. I believe it's the lowest ever. I don't believe that we've ever had anyone recommend a 0% levy tax increase. So that's important for people to see that we have really maintained ourselves under the tax limit over the last several years, but this year is significant. Again, I want to impress upon everyone that this is a result of the increase in foundation aid that we received. So let's talk about a contingent budget. And hopefully we don't have to go to this, but a contingent budget is after the voters have voted down the proposition that we are putting forward 2 times. The first time is May 16th, so it's important that everybody go out and exercise their right to vote. And the first thing that we would have to do is that we would have to lower our levy to last year's levy. Well, we've already done that. So what does that mean for us? So in this case, it would mean that we would have to, any kind of mandatory budget reductions such as no raises for non-bargaining staff, costs associated with community use, so the use of our fields would become, we would not be able to do, or equipment. All what we consider non-contingent or non-essential items would be up, not to be used this coming year. And I think of significance as well is the fact that we would not be able to purchase our 5 school buses, and our Central Valley Security Vestibule we would not be able to do that. So some upcoming dates. April 2nd this is today, this is my budget recommendation, and the board is asked to adopt the budget today. April 13th is when we have to put in our property tax report card to the New York State Department of Education. May 3rd is a public budget hearing, and I think people might say, well, why are you having a public hearing after you've already approved the budget? These dates are provided to us by the New York State Department of Education. They're the ones that give us these dates. And then May 5th is when our budget mailer will go out. May 16th, I'm going to repeat that again, is an important day. It's the day that you go out to vote on Proposition 1 and also members who are running for the Board of Education. So it's really important that people go out and vote. And I just want to remind everyone that that is taking place at Central Valley Elementary School. This past year, we did have a budget vote here, and we heard from our constituents that this did not really work well. So we've gone back to Central Valley. Another piece that you should know is that this year we've decided to do a superintendent conference day because I want to go back to safety and security. We are not comfortable with putting our children, having people go into Central Valley while our children are there. So we are having a superintendent conference day. And then I mentioned in the previous, under the contingency budget, that if the budget went down, we'd have a second opportunity, and that would be June 2nd.
20th.
I'm sorry, June 20th, yes, thank you. Let's go to the next slide. Any questions? Yes?
So I know New York State has some wacky thing. Does this year's 0% levy increase have any effect on what we can do coming for next year?
Yes.
How so?
Well,
It could.
It could. If you notice, the formula begins with the prior year levy. So that's really the impact, that we're not advancing the base, if you will, which is the base levy amount. So it does have an impact, but as Elsie alluded to, based on, the state aid increase that we've gotten, the additional federal money that we've gotten, although 5.75 budget-to-budget increase seems high, we've tried to constrain that as much as possible. There's a lot of things that are outside of our control. You alluded to the transportation. Other things. So, with all that said, we felt like it still was doable. It was a prudent thing to do. And if there's any year to do it, this would be it.
And we're funding things through reserve funds, the bus purchase and so forth?
Yeah, that's the budget transfer. Are you referring
Yes.
to, let's go back to that. Can we just go back to that for a
Slide
second?
2.
I said that's a new item that we have. So what would happen is if the budget passed, we would then take the funds and we transfer it to capital to be able to purchase
So
those
it
things.
comes through the approved budget?
Correct.
So instead of going into it, it's basically coming out of it?
Correct.
All right. Final question for you. Foundation aid as we go towards the future. Is this now locked in, guaranteed that will be fully funded by New York State going forward?
That's what
Or
they say.
can things in Albany change
That's,
depending on the economy, depending on the state of the state, et cetera?
Well, we don't have the requisite crystal ball right now
I
to make
understand
that determination, but my understanding is that the state has, had projections, conservative projections about their budget, and that they feel that they can afford this into the future and as a permanent change. It was, as we said, it was always the intent to implement this. There was the Great Recession, which was, huge, right, of 2008, 2009, so it took 10 years for the national economy to recover fully from that. And I think that's why they put foundation aid on pause. But, everything I hear, everything I read, and we've kind of discussed this at earlier points in time, they can afford it, and, and it will be permanent.
So,
Thank you.
So the amount of foundation aid, does that change from year to year, or it's a set amount?
It can change from year to year based on the formula. And the formula takes into account enrollment, takes into account student need,
Right.
the district demographics. We talked a little bit about that.
Because the way I'm thinking about it is, they are covering the rate of inflation and they're covering the increase in expenses. But eventually, once the budget starts increasing, the amount of foundation aid that is pretty much set is going to be insufficient to cover the budget. So what happens then is after 4 or 5 years, you're going back and your original formula with 0% increase in taxes will not allow you an increase large enough to compensate for the occurring inflation over 3, 4, 5 years. And what do we do then?
Well, I think there's a couple of things buried in there. So we're experiencing a 2-year, relatively large budget-to-budget increase, largely driven by inflation, driven by some other factors. Hopefully, and presumably, that inflation will dissipate, and we'll get back to a period of lower inflation that we've enjoyed for 10 or 12 years. That would then, we wouldn't have the pressure on the revenue side of the budget to increase the levy, to get more state aid. And I think at that point, there would be, let's say, more, it wouldn't be the large increase that we've had for the last 3 years in foundation. It would be more moderate increases, but increases nonetheless. And then we would drop back to the ordinary, typical kind of increase in the tax levy, somewhere in the
Gradual increase.
Right.
2 to 3%,
Because
which
what's
is the
gonna-
typical.
And-
Nobody wants a 5% increase
Right,
later
and
on,
it's not
And the
typical.
community says absolutely not.
But that would be aligned with the increase in the budget, which would be aligned with an increase in state aid.
If you take a look, if you can go back to that slide, because I think it's a really important slide to look at, where you
slide?
see the slide where we show budget-to-budget comparison, that's not typical. You can see over the last 5 years, it was anywhere as high as 3.87, and then it went to 2.59, and then it went up to 6.76. So that's not typical. What you're seeing is, and that's why it was important for me to say that this is really due to inflation. So we don't plan on having this kind of an increase. We don't plan on
We
it.
don't know.
Well, we don't, right,
The
everything is.
reality is we don't know.
When you're making, when you're thinking about the future, you have to take a look at what's happened in the past, right? So that's not been a typical thing for us.
Can you talk about the capital project a little bit? That's a question that I've gotten as far as, we gave a presentation about the projects that were going to be part of the capital project. So what is the status of those projects now moving forward? And is there going to be another capital project that's going to be put to the voters at some point?
So there is. I think part of why we did what we did, transfer to capital, was because we took back the community's feedback. So we are going back to look at this project, obviously cut things out, and really get back to what we think our community can afford. And so, yes, there is a plan to go back to, I think our first priority was really to get through this budget cycle, and then go back to the table, that has already started, to go back to see what are the things that we should keep in the project, and then go back to the voters.
And I think one of the things that we also talked about was making it a 2-phase project. So phase 1 could happen as early as the fall of 2023, and we would make that a, much smaller number than 115 million than we originally proposed. That would be phase 1, and then phase 2 would come, at some point in the future thereafter, because the needs are still there. And as we talked about, a lot of the needs were
Basic.
Yeah, basic things that they're not getting better.
Right.
And we're spending a lot of money still on, repairs and maintenance of old systems, so.
But by that, you mean that there'll be another vote in the fall of 2023?
That would be the plan, yes. I mean, obviously with the board's input and support.
Do we have a slightly wider graph going back to, let's say, 2007, 2008? And does it correlate with economy?
For the budget, budget to
With the
budget increases? We have that data, yeah, we could share that. I don't have it, immediately available. We do have that. Like an overlay of the budget increase
Yeah,
versus CPI changes.
Yeah, yeah. Because it seems like there's a decline from 18, but where's the graph prior to 17, 16, 15? And does it correlate with what's happening with the economy? And if we can actually predict what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We can predict with as much clarity that we have from the past, right?
I mean, it's difficult because, the budget to budget increase is driven by CPI, but there's other factors as well, right, that
Right.
we talk about, so.
So just I think for the public to understand, is there a difference between what's been referred to all along as state aid to foundation aid? Because that was,
Yes.
those terms have been kind of thrown
Which
around. so-
changed.
Yeah.
You want to take it?
Yes, I will. So, foundation aid is a subset of state aid. State aid is a more generic term, which is encompassing of many aid programs. And foundation aid is the more specific, formula-driven aid program that it makes up the majority of our state aid, but state aid is just a generic term. So you're right, we shouldn't use it interchangeably. It's not the same, but state aid is broader, right? It's all things sort of coming from the state. There's some federal aid too that goes to the special aid fund. And then foundation aid is a specific general form of state aid. And the other ones would be the expenditure-based aids that we've talked about and aid for, special needs students and special education expenses and, all sorts of things.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions?
Just a quick one. If we do go forward with this, are we at risk of losing anything that we
Say that
currently
again, I couldn't hear
have? Are we
you.
at risk of losing anything that we currently have?
No,
Services?
No.
Staff?
No.
That's what I
no.
want to hear.
And I think that's why I said maintain, the programs that we have, maintain the staff that we have. No, absolutely not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.